If you've been told to just use AI, but you still feel stuck on what to say, where to show up, and how to stay consistent, that's not an AI problem. It's a communication strategy problem. That's why the AI Desk was created by the Media Insider. The AI Desk helps small business owners organize their message, clarify their voice, and build a communication system that can actually run without hiring an agency and without sounding like everyone else online. AI should support your thinking, not replace it. That's the AI Desk from the Media Insider. Clarity first, tools second. For a free 30-minute discovery call, go to themediainsider.co and click Connect. Today on Local Whidbey, we're turning the microphone around and in the best possible way. I've invited someone I admire, Tiffany Scribner, Program Manager for Leadership Whidbey, to step in as our guest host. If you know Tiffany, you know she has a gift for guiding conversations, drawing out people's stories, and helping leaders understand not just what they do, but why they do it. Her work with Leadership Whidbey puts her at the center of community development, mentorship, and personal growth on the island, which makes her the perfect person to turn the tables and interview me today. I couldn't think of anyone better to help navigate my own story, my work, and the winding road that led me to Whidbey Island. So for this episode, Tiffany is taking the lead.
Hello, listeners. This is Tiffany Scribner, and I am today's host of Local Whidbey Podcast. Our guest is someone you should already know, the voice, the storyteller, the connector, and the creative force behind this very podcast. Magsy is a communication strategist, entrepreneur, supper club host, and community builder whose journey winds from corporate tech to creative entrepreneurship to the heart of Whidbey Island. Magsy's career began as a systems engineer for EDS at Enron, where she learned how complex systems and people really work. After moving to Oregon for her spouse's job, she moved into working with well-funded startups in the software as a service industry. After moving to Spokane, Washington, she launched Nosy Parker, a character brand that helped local retailers embrace digital communication long before influencers existed. Over the years, she's supported more than 220 retailers, worked with self-employed, startups, and founders, and even helped entrepreneurs craft the pitch decks that opened doors to real investment. In Spokane, she was also part of a team that brought Startup Spokane to wannabe founders as a mentor. She would love to bring that here to the island as well. Magsy later became Director of Digital Marketing for eWomen Network in Dallas, empowering women entrepreneurs across the country. Alongside all of that, Magsy has lived with a rare condition called congenital lymphangioma, a lifetime journey that has included surgeries, nerve loss, and changes to her speech, and one she's chosen to speak openly about as an act of leadership and compassion. And I have to say, good on you, Magsy, for doing that, because the world needs more of that. Moving to Whidbey during COVID, Magsy has become a meaningful part of the island's landscape, hosting nearly 900 people in her home through the With Magsy Supper Club, which is fabulous. And if you haven't tried it, I encourage you to. I have been there, and it is wonderful. Today, we're lucky enough to get to hear her story. Hi, Magsy. Welcome to your very own podcast.
Thank you for having me, Tiffany.
Of course.
I'm so glad to be here.
I bet you are. I'm so glad to be here too. And I'm really excited to get to know a little bit more about you today and get to share it with your listeners. We'll be out of our comfort zone together today because this is certainly the first time that I have hosted a podcast. First together.
It's just a chat. Just a chat.
Awesome. So I've got some questions for you here today, and I guess we should just jump right in.
Okay.
All right. First thing I would love to know is what brought you to Whidbey Island, and what was one of the hardest parts about being new on Whidbey?
Well, my husband has been transferred a lot in his career. And way back when we first got married and got into our careers, once we started having children, we had decided that any types of transfers, any types of things where we had to follow someone's career, it would be his. He's an only child. And the thought of him staying home with children wasn't in the cards. And so we decided, because you can't follow both, if you're being transferred. And so we got here because we lived in the Northwest before. We had our big first transfer with children when they were 2 and 5 was to Portland, Oregon. And then company buyouts sent us back to Texas. And then a job change for him sent us to Spokane. My parents live in Coeur d'Alene and my brother does. And so it was fun to be closer to family. And we were there and said we wouldn't move until the boys were out of high school. So we were there another 7 years. We're kind of like a 7-year couple. And then we went back to Texas because, like I said, he's an only child and we needed to help take care of his parents. And we knew we would move back this way because when you bring kids to a place when they're 2 and 5, that's what they feel they are. So both of our boys feel they're Northwesterners. You know, they were born in Houston. That's what they feel. They stayed here. And so we knew we were coming back here. So that's really how we got here. And, you know, we moved here during COVID. Mike worked for Honeywell for 17 years, and he's now changed to a company in Bothell that was Seagen. And then Pfizer bought it because all these buyouts happen all the time. So technically he works for Pfizer in Bothell. And so we've just decided to stay here so we'll be closer to our eldest son in Bellingham, and he's married and has 3 kids. And so we wanted to be closer to all of that.
So work and family, it sounds like.
Work and family and being back in the Northwest. Yeah. All of us like it in the Northwest.
So it was a long journey to come back where you knew you were going to be all.
Yeah, which is weird. It's not that I love being raised in Dallas, Texas. I love Texas. I don't like its current state and who runs it, but it's still, I love the state. Like you're from Ohio, right?
I am.
You love the state. But for us, it's better to live in the Northwest in the history of the United States at the moment. And so that's another really good reason that we're both glad, very happy that we're here. And of course, Washington is beautiful.
It is.
And so, yeah. And, you know, it's so funny when you raise kids here in the Northwest and then they go back south to go to college. It's just, they don't get it. They don't get the culture. My youngest said, Mom, during the winter in Oklahoma, all the trees are dead. And I said, no, they're dormant and they don't have leaves because here's evergreen.
We're used to our green here.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Everything that looks so ugly and dead.
Having been someone who is a transplant to Whidbey as well as, so what was the hardest part for you when you were new to Whidbey?
Well, the hardest part for me when I was new to Whidbey was that we arrived during COVID at the very beginning of the shutdown, and he was traveling to Spokane every other week. Because technically we were supposed to be in Spokane, but I didn't want to live there.
Okay.
And we've moved so many times. This move was technically supposed to be about where I wanted to live, and what house I wanted, and you know, all that kind of thing. And so he was going to Spokane every other week, and he was home every other week, and there's no way for me to meet people. And so I dove into landscaping my front and backyard, and of course I would meet neighbors that way, and they would wave. We didn't stand close or anything like that. So there was 2 years of just me being in this house by myself. And I did do some volunteer work for Habitat, and did Women Build, and did the upcycle event, the first one that they had, and I did those kinds of things and met some people, but people were still, even when things opened up, were still being distant.
Very much so.
Yeah, that was kind of tough, and just did a lot of, I joined and unjoined and joined and unjoined Whidbey Island community groups. Mm-hmm. Some of them are great and some of them aren't, and then I decided to totally, be off of them so that I could get to know people who they really are, not how they represented themselves on social media. And so that really helped.
Yeah, there can definitely be some cognitive dissonance between those two things, right?
100%. I just didn't believe that people were as nasty in person as they were online, and they weren't.
Yeah, that it's a lot easier to be a keyboard warrior, right?
Yeah, if that's what you want to call it.
Yeah, well, you could call it a lot of things. Yeah. With all of this, it makes a lot of sense to me that you started a supper club and a podcast and a way to reach out to locals, and seems to be kind of a solid through line.
Yeah. Well, what happened is when we left Dallas, there was this thing going on with these young chefs in Dallas who worked for major restaurants, but they had these pop-ups that had nothing to do with the restaurants they worked for. And some of them had been on like Magsy show and some others. And they would get together and cook. And the only way you could get an invitation to their pop-up was by subscribing. And they used to email lottery to pick people. But, in Dallas is such a big city. I knew one of them had 25,000 subscribers. And I still, you had to literally go and say, please pick me. And then it would activate that you were someone that was interested, instead of them emailing people that weren't answering their emails, because they had expressed frustration with that.
Okay.
And so one day here, I thought, I'm going to start a supper club here. Mm-hmm. And I did all of my research and, all the rules and regulations for county and state and all that kind of stuff, and came up with, and so did the state, that it was a private event. So there wasn't really anything commercially I had to do. But I really wanted to meet tons of people. So I didn't want it to be a traditional supper club where you have the same. I didn't even know 6 couples to ask, because typically what you do is have 6 couples, and twice a year you have a dinner at your house, and it's usually thematic. And growing up in the South, there was a lot of just popping up and going to people's homes for dinner.
Okay.
And as I was growing up. Mm-hmm. And I really wanted to get back to that kind of thing, the spontaneity of that.
Yes.
Instead of, one of the biggest things, even when we came to Northwest the first time, is you would ask couples over for dinner, and it wasn't that they wouldn't say no. They'd say, sure, I can in 4 months. And it just would drive me crazy. 4 months.
Yeah. Yeah,
I have little kids too. Come on.
There's definitely something to that. I think growing up in the Midwest, right? I came to the Pacific Northwest, and people would say yes, but then never give you a time or a date or agree to anything. And there was a certain sense of I always felt growing up that we could have people in our home for dinner on any given night with no notice. Whether that was friends or somebody just dropping by, that then, the second you're in the door, you're invited to eat. Right. And so I think there's something to that some of us search for. And I think the supper club
community happens really well around food.
It does.
Mike and I are foodies, and we appreciate really good food and making food ourselves. And so, his mother was an amazing cook. And in fact, growing up, being an only child, you would think at every dinner they had that they were feeding 10 people. My parents had 5 children, so there was always 7 people at the table. We never had leftovers. But Mike's family, the 3 of them, not only did she cook a meal every night, the leftovers from the previous nights were on the table in case you wanted those, with every type of crudité that was in the refrigerator, the olives, the pickles, all the things. And I was like, how do you have all this food? Well, they didn't have as many people to eat it. Truly, I did not grow up eating leftovers. There wasn't any. And Mike asked me that. He goes, well, don't you eat leftovers? I don't eat leftovers. Like, what's a leftover?
I might if I knew what that was.
Yeah.
I appreciate that immensely. One of the things I admire about you, Magsy, is how transparent you are about the realities behind the work that you do, whether that's community building or this podcast or anything else. And recently you've opened up a little bit about having some bullying happening online, some folks who are maybe not big fans of yours, and who are specifically irritated about your pronunciation of the word Whidbey, which I'm now very conscious of how I pronounce that as we're sitting here. Yeah. And you say it all the time in your podcast because it's in the name and it's where you live. Yeah. So I know you said you have congenital lymphangioma, and it's something that most people have never even heard of. I certainly hadn't heard of it before you and I spoke.
Super rare.
So how about you share a little bit about what that journey has looked like for you, what congenital lymphangioma see, I can't even say it. Congenital lymphangioma is, and how it shapes the way you move through the world.
So if you think of lymphangioma as lymphatic, that's what it is. It's a very rare disorder that children are born with. It's congenital. And only around 200 children a year in the world have it. And there are all different types of levels. When I was diagnosed with it, the pictures we were shown were children that had huge tumors, cysts on their throats, on their chins, on the sides of their faces. and it was incredibly deforming. And it just really scared me. And I thought, wonder if I'm going to look like that one day. And
That's awful.
yeah. And so it presented itself when I was little, and people didn't take their kids to the doctor for every little bruise or bump like they do now.
Right.
And so I walked in one day when I was 5, and my mom said my chin and part of my face was bruised. And she thought maybe I got in a scuffle with my brothers, and I had not. And so that was the first time she saw it. And it really didn't present itself even more till I became a teenager and started having that monthly cycle. And my face would swell up and bruise, which is a really weird thing to happen. And it would be, hard as a rock. And then I started getting all these cysts inside of my mouth. And I would show my mom, and she'd go, "Ooh, I wonder what that is." And that was about it.
Oh my goodness.
I
And
know.
what a fabulous experience, I'm sure, as a teenager to be having.
But I wasn't sick. It was more of, if this had been on my leg or my back or my arm, I wouldn't have thought anything about it because it would be something that was covered up.
Mm-hmm.
But it was on my face.
Yeah.
And so one time in high school, I fell during a volleyball game and bit the side of my mouth, and my mouth was full. We had to go to the hospital to get it sewn up, full of cysts in my mouth. And that was really the first time they were like, the doctor said, "What is this?" The ER. And they go, "We don't know what it is." But she doesn't complain about it. And so it wasn't until later in my 20s, my nurse sister said to me, "You have really good insurance now with your career. Why don't you go get that diagnosed, like exactly what it is?" Mm-hmm. And I hee-hawed around about it. And then when we moved to Portland, there was a newspaper article about a Russian child that was being transported to Oregon to be seen by a specialist for congenital lymphangioma. And I looked into this doctor and the description in the newspaper of what it was. And it was the description of what I had, but I didn't look like this child. They were enormously deformed. And so I made an appointment with the doctor, and I went, and he said, "That's exactly what you have, but you have a very minute case of it." And he said, "So it's going to grow really, really slow over time. So when you get older, it's probably going to be deforming to your face." And he said, "But I wouldn't touch it until then. And the reason is because you may be waking a sleeping giant. And doctors want to help you look better. They don't want to make you look worse. Mm-hmm. And operating on something like this, you have so many nerves around your mouth and your chin. We could make you paralyzed. We could lose saliva glands. You can, all kinds of things can happen. So you can have surgeries on the inside of your mouth like you have before and get all those cysts taken out. And they always would come back." He said, "And then just wait to see what happens." And so I said, "Okay." And I said, what is with the hearing thing? Because I do have a 10% hearing loss. And when I was little, I talked like Elmer Fudd. But a lot of kids talk like Elmer Fudd when they're little. But the school told my mom I needed to take speech therapy. So I did for 2 years. And I had a hard time saying R's and W's and L's and consonants like D's and B's together. And it was because of the no lymphatic drainage in my chin and the whole right side of my face. And that lymphatic fluid put pressure on my right ear, which was causing the hearing loss. So if you looked in my ear looked great, but that's what it was. Fast forward, when we were transferred to Spokane, I always have to find an ear doctor, always. And the reason is because my right ear has pressure in it, like I'm at 10,000 feet above sea level at all times, like even right now.
Okay.
And so I've learned out of habit to blow my ear out all day long. Mm-hmm. And so, and I had gone to the ear doctor, and he told me that he had read in a medical journal that sclerotherapy that is used for varicose veins was being used for conditions like this to close everything up. So the cyst and the things would stop forming. And he said, when you move back to Texas, we're about to move. He said, there's so many doctors in Texas, you should see if you can find someone that would work on you. And so that's exactly what I did. As soon as I got there, I was so excited about this new procedure. And unfortunately, I went to a doctor who just decided not to wait for my records and stuck a needle in my face. And he caused me to have a massive hematoma, and which turned my chin and my whole side of my right side of my face black.
Oh, no.
From blood inside,
Yeah.
And so after that, I decided to stop messing around, and I wrote to the doctor that was head of that vascular abnormalities in Mayo Clinic in Phoenix, and wrote to him. He answered me immediately because doctors like that like to see weird things and work on them.
The miracle case.
The miracle case. And so we flew out there and went and saw him. And he said, I've read that article. He said, it's very interesting. And he said, it's a very painful procedure, but it's not difficult. And he said, we can do it. We can try one round and see how you react, but I have to put you under because it will hurt too bad. So that's what we did. And then I went back 2 months later to have another treatment. And after scanning my face, it had completely closed all of the vessels that had cysts all in them. And so we were super excited. And so he then said, now you can have plastic surgery. And at that time, my chin had gotten so big. I used to tell people I look like Jay Leno's sister because you know how he has a big chin?
Yeah,
that's what my chin looked like. And I was so excited. And so they were able to take all that out. And also it turned out that it wasn't a tumor in my chin like they thought it was. It was a mass of scar tissue from previous surgeries. So they told me, we can't promise you that won't come back. We can't promise you that we didn't permanently damage the nerves in your mouth or around your mouth, or we think we messed up a saliva gland, but you'll have to see. We think you're still going to look great, which I call him the doctor that fixed my face because they did ruin a saliva gland and part of the nerves in my lower right lip are gone, along with some of the meat you have in your lip, the flesh, not meat, flesh. And so when there's certain things in pronunciations, I have a really hard time unless I stop. And on my podcast, I am not going to do that just because someone is irritated by the way I pronounce things. Okay. It's really about the person I'm interviewing. And the best thing you can do to relieve yourself by the way I pronounce things is just to not listen, quite frankly. And there's a gal, Nancy Holston, I think her name is, something like that. Yeah, Nancy Holston. And the only reason I decided to speak out about this is because she went on to my podcast page under a guest's post, which is about them, and decided to deride the way I speak. And she literally said, for God's sake. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to have to speak about this. I didn't want to. I usually ignore all of that because I consider it lowering myself, and I don't. But I just decided that to speak about it so that if there's other people being bullied for something they can't control, that's physical. And she can say, well, I didn't know. And all the anonymous people on some of the Whidbey Island groups that have spoken about what's wrong with the podcast host of Whidbey Local Podcast. She can't talk. She can't even say the island's name right. I'm sure that they in their own life have had things physical. Yeah. Everybody does.
Yeah. Everybody does.
And, so I don't understand why it's a big thing. And you had said to me, well, it is the name of the island and maybe they feel that you're dishonoring it. I can't remember what you told me.
Yeah, but I feel like, one, I would like to say that one of my most treasured things I think I've learned in my life is that everybody has a story, right? Mm-hmm. And we get into dangerous water when we assume because we know one part of someone or we hear one part of someone that we know their whole story. Yep. And I think it's really easy to sit behind a keyboard or to sit on the other side of a podcast and to listen to it and to decide what's wrong with someone else or what's wrong with a podcast or what's wrong with whatever work they're doing in the community. But that's what Brene Brown would call criticism from the cheap seats.
That's right.
Right?
I love her.
I love her too. And I just finished one of her books where she talks a lot about this. And this is something that's been kind of on my mind lately is this criticism from the cheap seats, meaning for those of you who haven't read her book, that it's easy to not be the person who's putting yourself out there, not be the person who's paying a lot to be in the arena watching what's going on. It doesn't cost you anything to sit there and from your cheap seat tell everybody what is wrong while you don't put any effort in.
Right.
And I think one of the beautiful things that you're creating, Magsy, is this sense of community. And you're trying to highlight the best of Whidbey Island, all of Whidbey Island. And the best doesn't mean the same thing to everybody. And I think one of the things I really like about your podcast is it doesn't seem to mean the same thing to you from week to week, right? You're letting other people define their own version of success and trying to highlight what that means for them.
Right.
And I think we should be applauding you, not criticizing you from the cheap seats.
Well, fortunately, I was brought up by parents that really thought I could do anything I wanted to. And I've always been really confident. And sometimes that's offensive to people, people, especially women that are overly confident. So
it's bossy.
Or bossy. Yeah, that too. Bossy. But anyway, I don't let people diminish me. So, she's not diminishing me. To me, she's diminishing herself. However, I do have compassion for it and wonder why she feels the need, or anyone else, the anonymous people who have said things, why they feel the need. And then even saying that out loud, who cares? Because maybe that's offensive to people, but I don't.
The real message that I think I take from this is that you're strong enough and kind enough to take somebody's comment that maybe was an innocent, ignorant comment, and maybe was not. Maybe was ill-intentioned, and I certainly don't know.
Yeah.
And instead tell the story that they're not party to and they're not aware of. And to maybe offer that as another reason why you don't remind it, or that we don't all know everybody else's story, and we don't know everybody else's why. We don't know everybody else's narrative that got them to feel what they feel, or to think what they think, or to do what they do. I think it's actually pretty cool and admirable that you obviously know that that's not necessarily, Whidbey Island is not necessarily a word that you're aching to say in every room in America.
Well, here's the funny part. So the software that I upload the podcast into, it is never spelled the way I say Whidbey, as Whimbee, which is what I'm being accused of saying. It's never spelled it like that. It spells the words the way that they're sounded. However, every guest I've had who said that word over and over again, the software has never spelled it correctly. It's spelled it the way they said it. And over again, for some reason, a lot of guests say more with an O-O, Whidbey Island.
Whidbey Island.
And I would see Woodbey in the transcript. And so I just think it's funny that it's never spelled it correctly.
Right. Well, and
it's hard to say.
I don't know how many people wander around going Whidbey, right? And pronouncing the H in there either. So it's not an easy word, but I think that it's a good reminder that we all have to be a little bit more compassionate, and remember that maybe there's a reason that it's none of your business, right? Like,
that's right.
That too. I think it's awesome that you're willing to talk about this, and awful that you kind of have to.
Well, I'll tell you that even at first, when I had that massive hematoma, we lived in Fort Worth, and I just went to the store like that. And that's just how I'm not super, obviously, I love makeup and fashion and do my hair and the whole thing. But because it was something I couldn't control, I didn't think much of it until I was in the line at the grocery store, and a guy behind me said, well, it looks like you didn't win the fight. And so after that, I started wearing a mask on my face before masks were a thing until it completely went down and wasn't bruised anymore, which took a really long time. I wore a mask on my face.
Yeah. How many surgeries have you had over the years?
Oh, geez. On the outside of my face, I've only had one, because there would be doctors who wouldn't touch me because they can paralyze your face. I think I've had 4 internally. Yeah, 4 internally, and not counting the ER visit when I was in high school. But yeah, 4.
Let's talk about your background. There are more interesting things to talk about than your congenital lymphangioma.
I know. Much.
You began your career in tech as a systems engineer for EDS at Enron in Houston. Enron, that's a name I think a lot of us not 20-somethings remember in the news a whole lot. What did that season of your life teach you about leadership, communication, or navigating complexity?
Yeah, that was my first real career job. I had jumped through so many hoops and got into the intern track at IBM. And I moved to Houston after Mike and I got married, and IBM was having a hiring freeze. So I went to work for EDS, which was created by Ross Perot, and it was to compete against IBM's consulting arm. And their first non-insurance account was Enron.
Okay.
And so I was on the 42nd floor of Enron. And I like to say it was before they were bad, or it's when they were planning to be bad. And, all that stuff didn't go down when I was there, but I have met all those men that went to jail.
Oh, wow.
I did work with them. And it was a real unique job because I was the only female in the department I was put in. And then we were all recent college grads. And I also reported to the only female director in the company.
I feel like we could make a podcast just about what you just stated.
Yeah. And she would only take me to client meetings. And I was a fly on the wall. And a lot of the people at EDS she worked with couldn't stand her, but the client loved her because and I really learned about putting the client first and their needs. Mm-hmm. I really learned about listening, and not thinking about what you're going to say while someone's talking. And I learned a lot from that. The other thing I learned was this. And this is no punch on women. But what I learned was that I would watch men as well. And men could literally be in meetings and cuss each other out. And they were having a beer at the end of the day. Women, 30 days later, they're still talking about it. They're still upset about someone said such and such to them. And she wasn't like that. She was like, whatever, because she really wanted to be in that environment work. So she was going to act like they did. I learned a lot about that, just watching, just being a fly on the wall and not just keeping my mouth shut and listening. I just learned a lot. And so the complexity of it was just the relationships and really learning how to be on a client account. Yeah, so you do. Yeah. You really learn about human behavior and interpretation and things.
Boy, haven't those things changed.
But the biggest thing with systems consulting, what it really was, is they didn't want their clients speaking to our tech team. We were the go-between. Okay. So we had to know how to program. We had to know the technology. We needed to know how it worked, but we didn't actually have to program it. We talked to the tech team. They would tell us if they could do it or not. Mm-hmm. And this had to do with gas pipelines, obviously, since it was Enron. And then we would interpret that to the client. Okay. They would never let the client speak with the tech team for any reason.
Yeah, making sure the people with the tech skills are where the tech is, and the people with the people skills.
And I enjoyed. And so, that was it was a really good first job for sure.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned after you had children, you moved to Portland, Oregon, and you made a pretty major shift from corporate systems engineering. Sounds like you were on the client side of that, even though you were in that engineering. But then you worked into the new online industry, which was software as a service.
Yeah, it's called SaaS. Most people know it as SaaS, but it's an acronym for software as a service.
And how is that different from what you did before?
100% different. I started looking into it because I did have small children. I did work at home. And I was scared to death of having a gap in my resume. And so I kept my foot in the door at all times. And so the first thing I did is, those books that came out to teach you whatever, it doesn't matter, but it's, for the stupid people. What does it say?
For dummies. Or for idiots, right? Yeah.
So I bought an HTML for dummies and a bunch of other things and just started teaching myself how to do all of that so I could talk intelligently about it and then understand what they were doing. Because when I was in school, you were learning to program for databases. And quite frankly, I didn't think it was that hard. It wasn't as hard as the stuff that I had learned to do. So that's what I did back in 2000. And I worked for a startup that was out of Boston. And I was their person on the ground, and they had a client in Portland. And so that's what I did. And it was one of the very first softwares online that helped companies plan events, big events, like like you would have Eventbrite today. My client was Pri-Med, and they put on conferences, conventions for the medical industry.
Oh, so huge.
Huge ones. It's like 60 a year. And so I was their senior account manager. And so I had to know how to talk the talk and how it worked, and teaching them how to set up their whole events for not only the attendee, but the people speaking at workshops and also the vendors.
Yeah.
And so that was my first foray into software as a service.
Awesome.
Because it's online and you don't have to have it offline, and it's not something you have to buy like you do if you used to have to for Microsoft Word or Excel and all those different things, and then have it updated and things like that. So I got that job because I had read HTML for Dummies. And part of the question was, do you know HTML? Yes, I do. I know it. So I could talk about it. I hadn't programmed very much in it.
Sure.
But I didn't think it was hard, and it's not.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's what I did. And that's how it was different. Keeping that foot in the door.
It sounds like you kept busy keeping your foot in the door.
I did.
So you mentioned before that you moved often for your spouse's job, which is something I'm pretty familiar with also. I moved here for my spouse's job almost 9 years ago now. So I'm going to ask a question that I'm pretty sure I already know the answer to, but maybe our listeners do not. Right. Was it hard being involved in the community when you're moving for your spouses?
Not at first, because when your kids are in school, that's all you have to do. Besides your own work is all of their activities, volunteering at the school. So you meet other people and your church groups and Boy Scouts and, all the different things your kids are involved in. You meet people immediately and people are more apt to make friends with you. Especially when there's groups of moms who maybe had a career and now they're not. They're staying on with your kids for a time. And so I didn't think it was that hard until we moved to Spokane. And it was really hard because it was more of a culture shock. But also because my oldest was going into high school. He didn't really need me to be at school doing nothing. And it was harder because also the biggest thing in Spokane was that I kept putting resumes out there to get jobs and I was getting nothing. I couldn't believe it. So I finally asked a headhunter, I said, what's wrong with my resume? Suck? And they're like, no, your resume's great. That people know who you've worked for and they're not going to pay what you made.
Yeah.
And so I was like, what? My husband didn't have that problem. He's an environmental health and safety engineer and he had no problem going to work for Honeywell and getting paid. And she said, well, yeah, that's a worldwide company. They have set standards of what people pay, but you're applying at small businesses or not just small, but maybe locally owned businesses and they're just not going to do it. And so they don't even interview you. So at that point, I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I don't have anything to do. I'm too young not to work. My boys are in school all the time and involved in sports all the time. And I don't feel like giving away my talent. And so I asked my husband, I said, would you do that? Would you take half your pay? And he went, well, only if we were about to be thrown on the streets. Yeah, I'd go work at 7-Eleven.
Right.
He goes, but that's not the case. I go, well, and if I'm not going to do that, so I'm going to start my own business. So if I'm not going to make any money, it'd be my own fault. And so that's how I got to know community in Spokane, is by starting my own business.
So you jumped into entrepreneurship and that's how you got to know people and get into community. And so you transitioned to this business called Nosy Parker.
Yeah. Nosy Parker.
Which you've called an early version of an influencer.
Yeah, she was.
So tell me a little bit about, what inspired to create that character.
I started visiting stores and I thought to myself, I wonder how they decide to become a business where they sell, say, clothing and how they find their audience, because I knew that most women shop. Actually, 70% of women shop for convenience and price, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
Then you have the 30%, and that's typically who shops local. Typically for quality, sometimes it's for brand. that they do that, or they're someone like me who I don't really care about brand. I care about quality. I care about a personal shopping experience. I also don't like to go to a department store where there's too many choices. It's overwhelming and I hate it.
Indecision paralysis.
Yeah. I hate it.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the reasons I shop local as well. And so I love to research. I'm really good at it. And so I'm researching, and I started just putting in these names in Google. And I think I wrote something in there like overly curious. And I saw these terms, and one of them was nosy Parker, and it's the British term for overly curious. It's what British parents say to their kids when they're not minding their own business. Stop being a nosy Parker.
Right.
So I decided to sit down and create a character, kind of like it's the person who did for Tony the Tiger for cereal. Because I just thought, who in the world would follow me? I'm a systems engineer, consultant type. Who in the world would follow me online? It's when social media first started, really was ramping up in 2008, 2009. And all of these businesses, none of them was on social media. And most of them didn't want to be on social media because it was still very foreign, to them. And so I created this character, Nosy Parker, and she always had a hat and glasses on. You couldn't see her face. And I'd never been in marketing or sales. And so what I did, I didn't want to come across as that way. I didn't want to compete with radio stations, newspapers, TV. Instead, I made it sound like a club. And I secret shopped a load of businesses and then sent them invitations if I picked them and said, you've been chosen. And the publisher of Nosy Parker would like to come and meet with you personally, like I was some kind of bigwig or something. And then I had a lady calligraphy invitations that it looked like a wedding, so they would make sure that they opened them.
Okay.
I have a creative head like that. And instead of just a piece of mail, they ditch in the trash. And I had like a 75% close rate with that tactic.
That's awesome.
And so I created a guidebook, a full color guidebook that was gift with purchase at cash registers for all the stores that were in the book. And then some of them were services as well.
Okay.
And it was Spokane through Coeur d'Alene. And then I blogged like crazy. I got on social media, and at the time it was just Facebook and also Twitter.
Yeah.
And had loads of followers, and was blogger of the year 3 times in a row when blogging was a really big deal.
Right.
And then I opened a market in Oklahoma City because I went to college in Oklahoma and I knew that market really well for shopping. And so I just wanted to test to see if I could do it in another state that I didn't live in, and I could, and it went very well. And I worked with the Visitors Bureau. I went to South by Southwest and represented them for their Tech Week on Twitter, where I sat. They took over a bar on 6th Street in Austin, if you know Austin, and made it look like Oklahoma with a big buffalo in there, and the whole thing. And these people would get up and pitch businesses, and I was on Twitter tweeting what they were saying and what I thought about what they wanted to do, which people loved.
Some people loved it.
But that was super fun. Got to go to a lot of parties, a lot of things, met a lot of people, and that type of thing. And so I did that. And then when we were transferred out of Spokane back to Texas, I closed Spokane. It's not really a shopping mecca, but there's at the time there was just a whole bunch of small businesses. And it was totally different than the small businesses in Oklahoma, because Oklahoma, there's 3 categories of people. You have people who shop at Target and Walmart solely. You have people who only shop at the mall. And then you have I call them oil wives.
Okay.
And that is the local retail shops. And Spokane, I was very successful at Shop Local weekends there and bringing in the city to support them. And people would turn out in droves for Shop Local weekend. And it was sponsored by Nosy Parker. And I tried to do that in Oklahoma City. First of all, people weren't going to go into the places where there was these local businesses, higher end businesses. They didn't want to spend that kind of money. And then the women that actually shopped at these businesses, they weren't going to participate in the Shop Local thing. It was just kind
interesting.
And a lot of them also told me the only reason they were in my book is because they didn't want to be known as not being in my book, because it became a reputation thing. We don't want to be known as you did pick us, which was a great tactic on my part. And then I spent the whole next year, once they were my clients, winning them over. And I found out a lot. I found out so many, I would say 80% of every single business I worked with didn't have a business plan or a communication strategy, which floored me. And so that's how I've helped over 220 businesses, because I would get in there and help them with their social media, help them decide. It floored me that someone would put an ad in a very fancy magazine and have no ability to track if people were coming in from that ad.
Interesting.
And so I was able to teach all of them that. Because most of the time when someone opens a store, it's because they're selling something they love and they've always wanted to do, and they hope it's successful.
Right.
And so in Spokane, if I say, well, what if you don't make enough to pay your rent? I'm just going to go get a loan. In Oklahoma City, what if you don't make enough this month to pay your rent? I'll just get my husband to write a check. Way different.
Yeah, those are different answers. That's for sure.
I know.
And realities that I think, right, we see business owners over and over not knowing how to, challenges that they don't know how to overcome. So, you know, you just mentioned that you've helped over 220 retailers succeed. You mentioned that many of them did not have a business plan or a communication strategy. So what other patterns did you see over and over in those small business owners? What strengths, struggles, what magic?
Well, one of the things that I felt that was my strength that I taught them is none of them were really on either markets were into scratching other businesses' backs at all. And you're not talking about a small community like our Oak Harbor or Langley. You're talking about both of them bigger cities. Spokane has over 360,000 people in it, and Oklahoma City, over 1 million. And so they didn't see any need to scratch someone else's back. There were people that didn't like the fact that they had a guidebook on their counter telling someone else where to shop, their competitor in the other part of town. But just teaching how you can scratch backs and work together because there's enough for everybody by showing them the numbers, the data, because data is everything. This is how many women, 30% of Spokane can come shop here. Can you provide enough product for 30% of 360,000? I'll divide that into, 150,000, 30% of that. No, I could never do that. I go, well, then there's enough for everybody. If you just showed them the numbers.
Right.
So they would change their attitude about participating in shop local events and doing their best to speak kindly of their competitors because a lot of them were women-owned businesses. Not all of them, but most of them were. And so that was the good part of it.
Do you think that there's that same room here?
Oh, 100%, because the businesses aren't the same. Number one, you don't have 5 women's clothing stores.
That's true.
And you have a lot of people, shopping online and things like that. I would be more curious to make sure that if we did a shop local event, and I'm not saying that the downtown doesn't have one already.
Yeah.
If they have, I haven't been to it. It has to be unique to Oak Harbor. It can't be like what Spokane did. Or it can't be like, what Oklahoma City did. It has to be unique to Oak Harbor. And it not only its branding, but exactly what people are doing when they come down there and the people who are coming to know the reason why. You can tell someone, well, you should support your neighbors. It's not ever going to light their fire to hurry up and go down there and spend money because something else came up or their child had a soccer game or, whatever that their football game is on, whatever it is. There's got to be more reason for it than that. And you can only do that through doing some research. Yeah, real research on how to do that properly. And for instance, I've only been to one where it was hailed as in the streets, the vintage and antiques and things. I would say that maybe there was 2 booths that had that in it for the advertising. The rest of it wasn't, And so if you really want people to spend money, you're going to have to give them something that's worthy of spending money on. Yeah. And so, it just needs to be unique to Oak Harbor. Yeah. Why people would come down there.
This is an off-the-fly question or on-the-fly question, I should say. What do you think is unique to our Oak Harbor?
Well, I will tell you this, and it was a lesson I learned. So the chiropractor, Dr. Dawn, was here when I first came here, and she was my chiropractor. And one day, when she was adjusting my back, because we always chatted the whole time, I was whining about how I just love Langley. And Oak Harbor had a long ways to go to be that cute and nice. And there was 7 salons on the main street. Why? And she was on the board. of Main Street
Okay.
Association. And she goes, well, let me tell you something. She said, we never will be because that's not what we're here for. She said, those towns attract visitors. We are here for the people who live here. And if we get visitors that buy from us, that's icing on the cake. But everything we do downtown is going to be for the people who live here. And that 100% changed my attitude. 100%. She was right, but I didn't know. I was brand new, just yakking. And so every time I go down there, and I do shop down there, I have a different reason why. I really want to get to know the store owners because they are my neighbors and they're providing something for me, not necessarily the tourist. But that doesn't mean we have to be nasty or detract the tourist.
Oh, I agree with that
it's
wholeheartedly.
Still putting money in your neighbor's pocket to help them support their family. But on the other hand, we just need to keep striving to reach people who live here because 26,000 people are not regularly going to downtown Oak Harbor.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I promise you that.
I agree with that.
And it is really easy and convenient and so nice to order online because there's so much here. I mean, that's not here that we need.
Yeah.
But I'm just talking about always providing, even some of the empty buildings in Oak Harbor is for the Main Street Association to really go after the types of business that they would like down there and giving them incentive along with the city or grants or whatever to open business down there because people would come down there and shop there.
Yeah.
And so you asked me how I would describe it.
I asked you what you think is unique about Oak Harbor.
That right there, compared to the rest of the island is unique. It is for, and I'm not saying that Langley and Coupeville both don't. They're always trying to make sure people that live there come and shop and have so many wonderful activities and things like that. I'm not saying that. But if you look at the Camino Island, Whidbey Island Visitors Association, it's 100 to target visitors.
Yeah.
And so, but the other thing that's unique to specifically the downtown and the things that are down there to do and shop at is I don't really see anyone trying to mimic what they think a business downtown should be. They're all unique.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So you go into a consignment store and there's two consignment stores down there now. And they're both completely different, completely different audience. You have the makers, and down there, and now you have a print shop. I went in there the other day and met them. And then you have the people that are doing charcuterie and things like that. I don't necessarily see people that are like, this is working in this city, I'm going to do it too.
Yeah.
It really does have to be something you love to do or you're going to fail.
Yeah.
Unless you're buying a franchise and they're doing it for you. You just have to open the doors.
Yeah.
Something like that, like Mod Pizza. That's not what I'm talking about. So I think that's very unique to Oak Harbor. To me, it's extremely risky to open a retail business. It really is.
Yeah.
And I admire someone that really feels that there's a market for what they're selling, even though it's not be me. This year was the first year I went into the tea shop, and it's amazing. It's an amazing tea shop in oil and balsamic and all that kind of stuff. So now I'm a regular, and I took my mom in there, and we bought stuff in there, and you just have to get down there and see what's new.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. There's so many businesses that have come and gone downtown over the last few years, and especially I think since COVID times. When I moved here, that downtown had so many empty buildings and it's so different now. And I think that we do have to challenge ourselves to get out there and to see, Mega Conglomerate Corp doesn't need our money.
No.
They already have it. So I love this call to local and shop small. You have worked with everyone from health professionals, entrepreneurs, early stage startups, seeking funding. How do you adapt communication strategies seamlessly across these fields?
Oh, wow.
I know it's just a real softball, isn't it?
Well, first of all of those things have something in common. even though they're different. And one of the things that I do when I have a client approach me, and usually I have clients based on referral, and it's like, I don't have any preconceived ideas of what they should do. So like I've had a brain doctor, I've had someone that was a type 2 diabetic nurse who became a consultant to work with companies because it is considered a disability in corporate America for type 1 diabetes, any type of diabetes, and how hard it is for people with type 1 diabetes to work in corporate America and the reasons why behind that. And so that was totally different than what I had done before as far as I've helped business coaches. I mean, you name it. One of the most unique customers I ever had was a virtual reality gaming retail business in Dallas where you put on the headset and you had a play gun. But when you walked in the room, you were shooting zombies and they were as big, if not bigger than you. I did it once just to see it. Oh gosh, and they're running at you and you literally think that they're about to get you. But this person that contacted me had gotten the franchise and wanted to launch it, in Dallas. And so I've done that. That kind of thing. So I really like to research. And the biggest thing it doesn't matter what you do, is you have to make sure you have the right audience. And then once you know who your audience is, how to reach them the best. And that takes research and study and seeing patterns, because a lot of times people think they know.
Assumption.
Because a lot of people start their businesses based on what they did in a career at a corporate environment. And this is how they want to do it differently. And this is what they're going to do by themselves. And they're not wrong. And they're totally capable of doing that.
Yeah.
It's just that finding that right audience. Your audience before had come through maybe the medical field, had come through insurance. That's not what you're going to be doing as a consultant to corporations on this specific thing about the brain that I was helping this doctor with. And who do you contact? Well, it's not going to be the same person you contact anymore.
Right.
And so it's one of those types of things where you really do have to plan and just don't throw darts or see spaghetti on the wall to see if it sticks. So I think that's one of the reasons I do it well, is because I don't have any preconceived notion already of what you should do. You have to research, you have to listen, and you also have to learn your own client's personality, and what they should be doing better, what they should be working on. And also teaching them not to have a preconceived idea of how to run a business when you've never done it before. There's a lot of that because, you're an instant expert on Google.
Well, aren't we all an instant expert once we've been through Google, especially with that new AI feature?
Yeah.
Your role at eWomen Network focused on helping women entrepreneurs grow. What did those years teach you about women's leadership and community? Community.
So I was the director of digital marketing, and they really hadn't done much for that, even though they were, at the time that I joined them, they were a 16-year-old company. The CEO created that company because she used to be in sales, and it was in a field where it was mostly men salespeople. And she never got invited to the golf course, never got invited for a beer after work or anything like that. And so she just really started observing men and how they network, and then observed women, and there was just a huge gap. And she really felt that women needed to adapt to the way men did it, but like a woman. And when I was there, they had an email list with 500,000 people on it. I was also on the leadership and really learned a lot about how she taught women how to network. And so she did that for years, and now they've been there for 25 years. And their big thing now is she found that most women-owned businesses never make more than $100,000. And so her whole big thing is to get you to $1 million. So on their website, that's what they're constantly doing, is to help women. What do you need to do to get your business to $1 million? Just to reach that. That's where I came across in working with podcasting, because we literally built a podcast network for these women's businesses to be on there, but also teaching women how to do podcasts. And Sandra used to be on radio all the time. So she, on a business station, so she converted that to what podcasts are today and teaching women how to do it. And I always thought I'd do a podcast, but it had to be for a really good reason. It wasn't just because to do it. I figured out I didn't know anyone's stories. And I was really tired of seeing on social media the 3-dayers that come on this island, and they say, this is what you should do for a 3-day weekend on Whidbey Island. And they show the same trails, the same restaurants, the same things to do. And end your day, it's the same thing. And I thought, I don't want to know all that because I live here. I want to know who everybody is because there's really unique people who have moved here. I thought, I wonder how many people are unique to this island, meaning they grew up here, like Lexi Ochoa.
Yeah.
Or Larry Mason, who's been here since he was 3 or 5, something like that. And so there's not a lot of people who grew up here, not from what I've come across so far. Yeah. And when I do, I love to interview them because I like to hear about how it's changed and what, and their opinion about how they'd like to see it progress or not, not progress. Yeah. And that kind of thing. But there's just really unique people here and coming across all these stories. And the other reason I come across them is because I literally ask the people I interview, who do you know that has a great story? And they'll tell me who they think.
That's awesome.
And because you don't know who you don't know.
Yeah. Well, as I said earlier, right, when we were having this conversation, it's really easy to assume you know somebody's story and that you understand what that story means. But it's a lot harder to ask the questions and to listen to the story with an open mind. I think you're right. There's so many incredible humans that live on this island, and so few of them have always been here. And I think it is easy to understand why we want this island to not turn into the next Manhattan, certainly.
That cracks me up because it's such a stretch.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is quite a stretch. I'm well aware.
Such an exaggeration.
It is an exaggeration, right? We have so many beautiful things here and the great outdoors. And I think people are afraid of losing those things.
Yeah.
And I do think we have to move forward with intention and integrity and a plan for how we move forward. But we can't pretend that we can just stay the way we are because the reality is people are moving here. People are coming. And just because we want to live in that fantasy where it stays just the same as it always was doesn't mean that's a reality.
No, not at all.
Okay, With Magsy has hosted nearly 900 people in your home. And I have been lucky enough to be one of those people. So tell me what hospitality means to you on a deeper level, because it's something that the first time I met you was so obvious to me that this is part of who you are.
Yeah, it is. Well, like I said, I grew up in a culture of there was hospitality. All of my grandmother, my aunts, my mom, my dad, everyone I was around. And my dad was a bivocational minister. So he worked a regular 8 to 5 during the week. And on the weekends, we were always at church. And so all of the way we grew up was that. And I don't really know nowadays if it's just part of the South. Because the South has changed. When we moved back to Dallas, it wasn't as hospitable as I wanted it to be. But anyway, that's just big city living, And so I just have always liked it. And even for my own family, I have a large family on my side. So whenever there's family things, it's always me. I'm the one that plans it. I'm the one that gets everybody together. I'm the one that makes sure it happens. And so when I moved here, I thought, you know what? We found this house. It looked like a hospitable house to me, and we've done remodeling to it. And I just wanted something that would be nice so that I could have people over. And then, so, part of that hospitality, like you said, is part of my personality. I like people to meet each other.
Yeah.
I like bringing people together. And that people don't need to be lonely. I've also found in my life that, especially at my age, people already have a lot of friends they don't want anymore. And I'm not saying that crassly.
No,
they don't want any more friends.
I think people get comfortable in their social circles. Yes. And it's difficult to welcome a new person to your social circle. It's difficult to shake things up because you don't know who people are going to like and if they're going to click. And I think one of the magical things about your supper club, right, is that you actually don't know who you're going to see here. I came here with a friend and I really suspected that I would know someone because I have been in places where I've met a lot of people who live on this island and who are active parts of our community. And I was shocked by not knowing anyone. And it was such a delightful shock.
Yeah.
It was a delightful thing to realize that there are still so many people that I don't know and I haven't met that have amazing stories.
Well, that one of the reasons is because I have people from the southern end of the island that drive up here too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which I was very happy to see when I first started doing this. I didn't think anyone would down in Clinton or Langley or whatever would drive up here. I don't think it's that far down there because I'm from the city. But many people here do think it's a really long drive to drive up to Oak Harbor or vice versa.
I agree with that. And that's, I grew up in a very small country town in kind of the middle of nowhere in Ohio. The closest stoplight was 4 miles away.
Wow.
We had a Dairy Queen.
Right.
Because that's one of the franchises that will come into very rural areas. And it's about
dip cone.
Yeah. Gotta get your cone, your
dip cone.
dilly bar.
Yeah.
But I think that is, that kind of distance isn't a barrier for me, but it does become a barrier for a lot of people. And I think that we are one island. Yeah. We say this in Leadership Whidbey all the time, right? We are one island.
One island.
And we have to learn how to navigate and change and grow and adapt to whatever the world throws at us as one island, because whether we want to acknowledge it or not, that is the reality of our existence here. Local Whidbey has become such a heartfelt project. Why do stories matter so much to you?
Well, I'm a big reader. Also,
me too.
Before I went into the tech industry, I really thought I was going to be a writer.
Oh, interesting.
But, in high school, they test you what you should do. I tested super high for business and tech. And my dad was like, no, you're not being a writer. You're going to do this because you'll be able to pay your bills and you will never have to move home, which was true. And so I went that just because it was the good thing to do in order to support myself and that type of thing. And so in order to get back to writing and stories, I love stories. I took a narrative writing class because when you write tech talk, it's short, to the point, no fluff. So I took a narrative writing class in Seattle to get that back.
Oh, interesting.
And did my little hosting book, and I have another stories book about dining experiences coming out that's funny. And I just love to hear people's stories. Maybe I am really the nosy Parker. I'm overly curious.
Overly curious.
Yeah, and I want to hear the story.
I love this conversation, though, Magsy, because so much of the work we do in Leadership Whidbey is really focused on what does it mean to tell your story? What does it mean to really understand other people's story, or to listen, and not just listen, but hear other people's stories, right? And there's a big difference there. I know you just from the look on your face, the difference between listening and hearing. So I think that's really beautiful. And I think that stories bring us together. Understanding other people's stories can bring us the capacity, the pathway for empathy and understanding.
Yeah.
And that's a really beautiful gift, to want to hear stories, but also to want to share them. And I think you're bringing a big gift to Whidbey by making sure that all of these beautiful stories that remain untold are being told.
Yeah. I'm also a very intellectually curious person. I really like hanging around people who are also intellectually curious as well. And so far, it doesn't matter what it's about. Everyone I've interviewed. I just interviewed Hannah Anderson, who works for the Conservation District. I wanted to interview someone in their 20s who chose to live here.
Nice. I love that.
Yeah. And she was amazing. She was fantastic. I think of all kinds of things that I can pull her in to work on because I want that perspective, from her. And so, that's why I like stories. And she had a story too, even at her young age.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we all have stories. In these many lives you have lived as a tech professional, as a creator, as a strategist, as a host, as a storyteller. When you look back, what is the thread that ties your story together?
I was thinking about that because sometimes, people can look at that as constantly shifting because either something's not successful or you're unfocused.
Mm-hmm.
To me, they all tie together because life changes. And I used to tell my boys every 10 years, your life will be different and you will be a different person.
Oh, that's so true.
Because you grow.
Thank you for that. Yeah, being ready to change for what was needed where you were at.
Yeah. 100%.
It's a beautiful thing. All right, Magsy. So I know that you usually sort of close up with some rapid fire questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have a list for you today. So let's do some fun, quick, and hopefully a little bit revealing questions for you. And I'm just going to go ahead. Coffee or tea?
Always coffee in the morning and in the evening tea.
All right. And how do you take your coffee?
I put a scoop of protein powder in it. And this time of the year, I then sprinkle pumpkin spice, drip the coffee in there, then put whipped cream, and on the top, I put cinnamon.
All right.
It's a whole thing.
That does sound like a whole thing. What Southern food do you miss most?
Okra.
Okra. Very
I absolutely love okra.
And what's your go-to comfort meal to cook as we're sitting here in a rainy, glum day?
Okay. My comfort food, and I have this every Monday night, is I love to make my own pasta sauce with all the stuff in it. I take a jar and I put it in there, but then I add all this stuff in it. It's kind of like puttanesca.
Okay.
With a protein-based pasta.
Okay.
And we pretty much eat that every Monday night.
All right. So pasta with red sauce
it's a red sauce.
Short version.
Yeah, with artichokes and meat and our ground meat in it and olives and spinach.
It's just good.
Yeah, it's like pasta. It's like stew for Italians.
A book you recommend to everyone?
Oh, gosh. I would say anything that Barbara Kingsolver writes. My favorite book for many, many years has been, and probably still is the Poisonwood Bible. And then her recent one, Demon Copperhead, is amazing. But anyway, anything she writes.
All right. Are you early morning or late night creative energy?
Late night. 100%. I'm not a morning person at all.
Oh, girl, we got that in common.
Yeah, not at all.
All right. I'm going to ask you one more question.
Okay.
What's something that you wish people knew about you the second they met you that they might not?
Oh, that's a really good one. They probably do know this about themselves and living here, but it can get really lonely here. Really lonely.
Yes, it can.
And people ask me, are y'all going to stay here through your, when you retire and be there forever and stuff? And I have to say, I don't know. Yeah. And it's not because I don't love it here. It really does get lonely here to me. And I think it has to do with my stage in life and trying to be involved as I possibly can, but still not making those connections where you really feel like people care about you.
Yeah. It is a hard thing to be, I think, a person over a certain age without kids, without a prescribed reason to connect to people on this island. I think as someone who also moved here with a spouse, moved here for a spouse's job, it took me a long time to make connections. And as you said earlier, right, your life changes all the time. I often say, if I had ever guessed what my life would look like 5 years from now, I would have gotten it wrong every single time, every time you ask me that in my life. And so even when you make connections, sometimes things change or people move away or relationships don't work out the way you thought they would. And it can be really lonely here, but I think you are doing incredible things. You are making incredible connections, and this community is lucky to have you.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice.
And I hope you're here. I hope it works out, and I hope that you keep making it a little less lonely for yourself.
It was one of those things that it just takes time and you don't know what tomorrow brings.
Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
Magsy, thank you so much for letting us step into your story today. You know, you've spent your life helping other people share their voices, both entrepreneurs and creatives, neighbors, and now the people of Whidbey Island. We're so lucky to have you. Carrying this journey behind the microphone shows just how much intention, courage, and reinvention you bring to everything you do. Thank you for the hospitality you give this community, and it is amazing. For the stories that you hold, and for all the ways you build connection, one meal, one conversation, and one islander at a time. It's been an absolute honor to interview you, especially on your own show. So thank you for that, lady.
You're welcome. I enjoyed it.
Well, me too. Have a wonderful listening journey. I hope that was a wonderful listening journey for your listeners, and that this won't be the last time we talk.
That's right. And I think we will. Thank you, Tiffany.
Thank you.
An intention of the Local Whidbey with Magsy podcast is support of organizations who directly serve locals. No one should have to choose between a meal and a maxi pad. Bras equal dignity and better health. I support the girls. Whidbey Island provides free feminine hygiene products, bras, and new underwear to local women in need. Donations always are welcome. Go to their Facebook page to check out all of the drop-off locations on the island. There are at least 19 locations. They also have a wish list on Amazon. Your gift today changes lives on Whidbey Island.